A youth pastor in Arlington, Washington, was charged with 2 counts of third-degree child rape amid allegations he abused a teen girl he met in a youth group. Kendall Kippen, 27, was employed as a youth pastor at Jake's House Church in 2017 and 2018, according to charging papers filed in Snohomish Superior Court. His father is the church's lead pastor. The girl met Kippen in 2017 when he was 22, and she was 15. A police investigation found evidence that Kippen had repeated sexual contact with the 15-year-old girl that he'd met at the church. Another young woman came forward, alleging she too was a victim of Kippen's abuse, which began in 2016 while she attended a youth group at Jake's house. She was 17 then.
It was recently discovered that a man, William Barrett Riddleberger, who was featured on the front page of a pro-Donald Trump dating website, it was revealed that this man had been convicted of child sex crimes back in 1995. The picture on the website is of Barrett, and according to stories, I'm not sure if it's his girlfriend or his wife. However, the two met at a Tea Party function several years ago, so the website decided to have them on the front page. But Riddleberger, in 1995, filmed himself at age 25 having sex with a 15-year-old girl. That was the crime for which he was convicted. Now, according to a recent interview, Riddleberger says that he paid his debt for that crime, and people should move on.
A popular QAnon influencer, he speaks to a lot of his followers on a regular basis about how, the Democrats are a bunch of pedophiles, they're running sex rings out of pizza shops, and on and on. We've heard these things before. But it's just come out that he's the one doing that stuff. Surprise, surprise. His name is David Todeschini, and he also had an alias he went by because that's not shady at all. David Trent was the alias, and he's a well-known QAnon influencer. There's his face there.
So of course he accuses all Democrats of being pedophiles, even though he knows he sexually abused an 8-year-old. He knows who he is, right? And by the way, he might be in trouble here because he didn't register all of his aliases because he's on this dangerous sex offender list. This is one of the most popular QAnon guys in the country.
Jason Yates, the former CEO of My Faith Votes, a nonprofit organization pushing Christians to vote their values, has been charged with 8 felony counts for possessing CP material. And here's the twist. This is not his first offense. Yates has a prior conviction for similar charges that was later expunged. An unnamed witness handed over a hard drive to the authorities, one allegedly found in Yates's office and containing over 100 images of CP material. So, how did this hard drive come into the hands of law enforcement? According to the BCA's report, a relative of Yates discovered the drive by accident. They were simply looking for some extra storage and found this hard drive in his office.
Who here knows who created Stop the Steal in 2020? That would be me.
President Trump tweeted that a Stop the Steal protest will take place in Washington, D.C. next week. The president's tweet says the protest will take place on January 6th. That's Wednesday, and the same day Congress meets to formally count the votes cast by the Electoral College.
The Stop the Steal organizer, known as Ali Alexander, has now admitted to asking teenage boys for naked pictures and also sending inappropriate text messages to these teenage boys. Now, he posted a statement about his behavior and how he has been battling with same-sex attraction, which same-sex attraction is not a problem. being a 32-year-old male who sends inappropriate sexual messages to teenage boys is a problem. Now, Alexander has released a statement about this, as I mentioned multiple times. I want to get into that statement now, starting with this. He wrote, "This is too gay. I apologize for any inappropriate messages sent over the years. Forgive me. While having repented before God and confessed at church, I want my supporters and those involved to hear my apology today."
These are screenshots of Snapchat messages. The Ollie files, he calls it. Number 7, Nicholas, 15 years old, Nicholas, and quotes, Nicholas was 15 when Ali Alexander asked him for sexually explicit photographs in which he referred to as jack-off material. When asked him to lie to his parents so they meet for sex, offered to buy him alcohol and threatened to make his family go W2F if Nicholas ever spoke out.
Well, Paul and Jess, just a little bit earlier this evening, more police released this body camera video. In it, you can see and hear police ask the now disgraced former state senator, "What are you doing in a motel room with an underage boy?"
Yeah, because you have a juvenile in your hotel room.
March 9th, 2017, more police at the motel room door of former state senator Ralph Shorty.
Come out before you get me worried. Show me your hands.
Okay. I'm sorry, guys. You're kind of freaking me out.
Yeah, that's what we do. He's 17.
Shorty tells the officers that he was just helping the teen as a mentor.
We were just hanging out and talking about life and stuff, and we couldn't graduate high school, and he was trying to help him get his life on the track.
He tells officers that the juvenile is the one who brought the marijuana to the motel.
Getting high with a young kid, whatever, is a bad idea.
But just weeks before this body camera video, Ralph Shorty told me this about doing drugs.
You should not be doing them in front of minor children.
Shorty admits to driving the teen to the motel and chatting with him under a fake name.
Yeah, you can shut the door. You're good. We're done.
Now, Shorty was not taken into custody. He was not arrested that night. But this motel incident led to a lengthy investigation, and ultimately, Shorty pleaded guilty to child sex trafficking.
One of the first witnesses at the Ghislaine Maxwell trial was an Epstein sex slave using the pseudonym Jane Doe. Jane had already given a sworn deposition to authorities. In it, she recounted the horrific acts of sexual violence she was forced to endure. She also talked about a time when Jeffrey Epstein brought her to meet Donald Trump at his Mar-a-Lago resort when she was only 14 years old. This is an excerpt from that deposition.
During one of my encounters with Jeffrey Epstein, he took me to Mar-a-Lago, where he introduced me to its owner, Donald Trump. I was 14 years old at the time. Jeffrey Epstein elbowed Mr. Trump playfully, asking him, referring to me, "This is a good one, right?" Mr. Trump smiled and nodded in agreement. They both chuckled, and I felt uncomfortable. I was too young at the time to understand why.
All right, now to stunning new developments in the trial of Ghislaine Maxwell, a woman identified only by the pseudonym Jane. She says disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein took her to meet Donald Trump in the 1990s when she was just 14.
Jane testified that both Ghislaine and Jeffrey Epstein sexually abused her when at the age of 14. We're now on cross-examination, and there are a couple of headlines here. One, during cross-examination, the defense attorney asked her whether she said Jeffrey Epstein introduced her to Donald Trump. She said yes.
Here we go again, another Donald Trump delegate, another disaster. This one's from Maryland. Let me explain what happened here. A Donald Trump delegate to the 2016 Republican National Convention has been indicted in Maryland on federal charges that include using a minor to make child pornography, oh boy, illegal possession of a machine gun, and illegal transport of explosives. Now, two of these are, I guess, relatively unsurprising. There's a conservative delegate who's got a machine gun he shouldn't have. Who's surprised by that, right? And then they've got explosives. I know, those are the guys who are always like, oh, the Muslims got the bombs. Here I need to make an illegal bomb. So the child porn, I mean, look, whether you're surprised by that or not is up to you. But obviously, this guy's got to go. And by the way, let me also say, it's not like Donald Trump knew this guy was into child porn and made him a delegate. So don't go that far, okay? But there is a curious case of bad guys who seem to be attracted to Donald Trump. So let me give you a little bit more detail on this guy. And his name, by the way, is Caleb Andrew Bailey. He's 30 years old. And the federal indictment indicates and includes the allegation that from March 2015 to January 2016, Bailey attempted to use and did use a minor to engage in sexually explicit conduct to produce child pornography. So he wasn't just looking at child porn, he was making child porn. So that is beyond horrific, right? I mean, this guy's he got bombs, he's got child porn. Does it get any worse than this?
Okay, so he shows up on Bill Maher. This brings a lot of attention to Milo or Milo, call him what you want. And then people start checking into what he said in the past. And a clip of Milo defending effectively child rape and pedophilia has gone completely viral. And it has caused some real problems for Milo Yiannopoulos' career. It's from when he was a guest on the Drunken Peasants podcast about a year ago, a show I appeared on a couple of months ago, I believe it was. And Milo spent a long time effectively defending pedophilia, saying that attraction for adults to 13-year-olds is not necessarily a bad thing, that he's glad he had a sexual relationship with a Catholic priest when he was a kid. And first, he talks about, well, consent is sort of arbitrary.
This arbitrary and oppressive idea of consent, which totally destroys, the understanding that many of us have of the complexities and subtleties and complicated nature of many relationships. People are messy and complex, and actually, in the homosexual world particularly, some of those relationships between younger boys and older men, the sort of coming-of-age relationships, the relationships in which those older men help those young boys to discover who they are and give them security and safety and provide them with love and a reliable sort of a rock where they can't speak to their parents. Some of those relationships are some of the most
molestation to me. It sounds
well,
like
you know what?
It sounds like Catholic priest molestation to me.
And you know what? I'm grateful for Father Michael. I wouldn't give nearly such good head if it wasn't for him.
Oh my God! Oh my.
Is Donald Trump a messiah? No. He's just a man who wants to give back to his country, America.
But let me ask you to tell us what you say happened beginning at age 14 with him.
Well, we started filming the show in September of '86 when I was 14, and he immediately took to me and befriended me and earned my trust. And then he started expressing his love for me, and sorry, it's emotional. And talking about marriage in the future. And then I was still 14 before my 15th birthday. We were at his house, in his car, in his garage, and he reached over and he penetrated me with his finger. And that is when the sexual touching and abuse started after that. And, Nick, he's put out a statement because there was stuff that didn't make that interview, where I did tell him that I was molested and that there was so much more to the story.
I do want to tell the audience about that. So it's this guy, Nick Ritchie, who's got a very raunchy website and radio podcast. And you share a manager, I should point that out for the record, but he came out with a statement just now to follow up on the interview he did of Nicole, where she's saying, I was 17 and, sort of laughing about she wanted to lose her virginity. And this is what Nick Ritchie has given us. He writes, I remember the day Nicole Eggert did the radio interview with me about Scott Baio. Nicole was distraught after the interview. And off air, she was an emotional wreck. She told me it was much worse than she described on air. She said, he molested me as a child, and I didn't know any better.
Ronald Williams II was a researcher for President Trump's Advisory Commission on Election Integrity. Trump launched the commission after making unfounded claims that millions of fraudulently cast ballots cost him the popular vote in the 2016 election. Williams' arrest came after police conducted a search of his home after they were tipped off by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. He was arrested after authorities said they found child pornography on his cell phone. Williams is charged with 11 counts of possession and distribution of child pornography.
I mean, some of these foreign girls, you know, Mr. Trump, in my country, we say hello with vagina. And
well, you could also say, as the owner of the pageant, it's your obligation to do that.
So you have done that. Now,
I'll tell you the funniest is that I'll go backstage before a show.
Yes.
And everyone's getting dressed and ready and everything else. And, you know, no men are anywhere. And I'm allowed to go in because I'm the owner of the pageant, and therefore I'm inspecting it. You know, I'm inspecting.
Right,
I want to make sure that
you're like
everything
a
is
doctor.
good.
You're there.
Yeah, the dress. Is everyone okay? You know, they're standing there with no clothes. Is everybody okay? And you see these incredible-looking women. And so I sort of get away with things like that.
He just came strolling right in. There was no time to put on a robe. Some girls were topless. Other girls were naked.
The time that he walked through the dressing rooms was really shocking. We were all naked. He came backstage and was looking me over like I was just a piece of meat. No one dreams of being ogled when you're a little girl wanting to wear a crown.
It was certainly the most inappropriate time to meet us all for the first time. The youngest girl was 15, and I was the eldest at 19.
Ron P. Broussard Jr. was hired to the Trump University staff in 2007 after years serving as a motivational speaker at get-rich-quick seminars taught in hotel conference rooms. Though he has never been licensed as a real estate agent or broker, Broussard is listed as staff or coordinator for at least 5 Trump seminars titled Fast Track to Foreclosure. Records show the former Army sergeant was convicted at court-martial in 1994 of sodomy and indecent acts with a child. He then served 5 years in the military prison at Leavenworth, Kansas. Broussard, who now lives in Duluth, Georgia, is a registered sex offender. He told the Associated Press that his conviction involved the 8-year-old daughter of a fellow soldier.
For my garbage person of the week, we're going very serious here because it's a definite garbage person, but also we kind of have to make a point about this. So before I get to the details, I want to give you a content warning and a trigger warning. The things that this person did are about as disgusting as anything I could conceive of. And for some people, even hearing about the horrendous things that they did will be too much. So consider yourself warned. But my garbage person is Ruben Verastegui, I believe his name is. A former senior. Verastegui? Okay, thank you. A former senior ad designer for the Republican National Committee who called the sexual abuse of babies his, quote, absolute favorite. He has now been sentenced to 12 years in prison for receipt of child pornography. He was an active participant in an online group with at least 18 members dedicated to trading child pornography and casually discussing the sexual abuse of children. He told the group his preference was for babies, saying they were his absolute favorite. Solicited another member of the group for videos of babies being raped. He commented on videos saying he wished they were longer. And so now he pleaded guilty to charges of having 162 videos and more than 50 images of child pornography just on his phone alone back in July of last year. Federal judge sentenced him to 151 months in prison, followed by 5 years of supervised release. This is obviously, objectively, about as horrible a thing as you can imagine.
Hey, what up, everybody? A little bit of story time. So I live in an incredibly liberal state, Washington, yeah. And every time I wear this hat out in public, you know, people always give me those looks of, ooh, it's a MAGA hat. Ooh, it's so bad. He hates everyone. But then they read it, and usually they have a pretty good laugh, you know, in support of it. Then again, you still do get those people that are offended by it, but, you know, imagine that in a blue state. Ha! You know, ooh, they have rights too. No, they don't. The victim does, but they shouldn't have any. So, pretty cool hat, make pedophiles afraid again. I love it. So, yeah, people always mistake it for a MAGA hat.
Riley began a crowdfunding campaign to launch a nonprofit aimed at catching online predators and deterring them from engaging in harmful acts against children.
But she was very descriptive of what was happening. And like I said, like, we're not here to cast judgment. We're not here to label people, and understand, like, there's things that happen in our lives that cause us to make mistakes. But it's an 11-year-old girl talking about things that were done to her that shouldn't have been done.
Like I said, it's not even a sexual thing. I don't feel attracted. It's just this weird impulse. I don't know. I don't know. It's so weird. God, this is just a weird conversation. Developing, you know, in certain areas, and you know, what's wrong with me? Oh God, I'm just a rotten sack of.
I grew up a Democrat, and I've always been a Democrat until I met this man right here.
A grand jury has indicted Pro Football Hall of Famer Lawrence Taylor on charges of third-degree rape and patronizing a prostitute. The indictment follows his May 6th arrest when prosecutors say he paid a 16-year-old girl $300 to have sex with him. The former linebacker was also indicted on charges of endangering the welfare of a child and sexual abuse and criminal sexual act in the third degree.
So these rooms, presumably there were women in these rooms?
Oh yeah, a lot of women.
Mm-hmm. How were they?
All over the room.
How were they dressed, Uncle Luke?
Half naked.
Half naked.
Half naked and some naked.
Half naked and some naked.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
We had a house party. They up in there naked. All the women were enjoying themselves like they do.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know, but the thing. Let me tell you, the thing is, when you're around, I've been around a lot of models and a lot of these pageant women, because that's what mostly it was. It was mostly pageant women.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of these women ain't of age. So when you got a whole bunch of these women running around, whether they of age or not, you know, there's a lot of things going on. You just, you know, some women look too young.
Oh,
so you keep it moving.
I see.
You know, so it wasn't nobody beating no women, nobody taking advantage of no women. I mean, they were all enjoying themselves. That's what they were there for. But were they old enough to be enjoying themselves? I don't know.
Was there sex?
Of course there was.
I guess that's a stupid question now to ask. Okay, so I think I got you now. You're saying that all this was going on and you weren't clear as to whether these were adults.
I wasn't clear whether or not they were adults, and I wasn't clear whether or not, whether I wanted to be in that kind of environment. Okay, he said, look, I got all these women. I got these women from the pageant. They're going to be there. So we went. It was like, hey, man, I got a pageant down here. I'm hosting these women at the house, okay, up in Palm Beach. They send some cars to pick us up. We get in the cars. We drive up there. Me, Mike, Eddie Murphy, we all in our own individual cars. Car service drove us up there. We got there. He showed us around the house. There wasn't no DJ. It was more of, hey, get in where you fit in. Whatever room you're going to go in, you go into that room.
So you say no DJ. There was no music? Or the music was piped in?
No, there wasn't no music.
No music.
That was the interesting part about it. There wasn't no music.
So women just naked in rooms with no music?
Hey, people walking around. It wasn't, listen, it wasn't nothing wrong with that. I was happy to be at that party, but then at the end of the day, when I started looking at some of these girls' faces, I was like, man, these girls don't look like they're old enough. I didn't ask nobody their age. And then all the other stuff going on. It was like, okay, I can't be up here. I got to go.
Our firm, along with the Gillespie Law Firm, represents approximately 24 former residents at Lord's Ranch who were sexually abused.
The Lord's Ranch was owned and operated by the Sewell family. It was founded by a man named Bud Sewell, and later his son Ted took over operations.
In 2021, the Arkansas legislature and governor took a stand for victims of child sexual abuse, and they passed a revival statute. That allows survivors to file civil claims against any types of defendants up until the end of January 2024.
Yesterday, after we taped, the White House announced that President Trump had commuted the prison sentence of Ted Sewell, a former operator of a behavioral health company in Arkansas, who was convicted on bribery and fraudulent charges in July of 2016.
Today, we shed light on a deeply troubling case exposing decades of abuse at the Lord's Ranch, an institution that was meant to provide care to children, but turned into a nightmare. Escaping scrutiny. The facility's fortunes improved during Huckabee's governorship, blocking investigations and avoiding consequences. Allegations of abuse have persisted for years, with survivors recalling instances of improper restraints and violent means used to thwart investigations. Sharing survivor stories. Survivors are now sharing their stories, some through a Facebook page titled What Happened at Lord's Ranch, and podcasts detailing the cruelty and sexual abuse.
Oh, wait a minute. We have a big celebrity here tonight. And I'll tell you something. He's great, and he loves this state. Congressman Matt Gaetz. Where the hell is Matt Gaetz? Where is he? Hello, Matt.
Former Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz tried and failed to block the release of that much talked about and very explosive House ethics report. CBS News reviewed the report, which accuses Gaetz of having sex with a minor, paying for sex with multiple women, and doing illegal drugs. Allegations in that report that Gaetz denies. That report accuses Gaetz of making $90,000 in payments to 12 different women. The House ethics report goes on to claim those payments were likely connected to sexual activity and to drugs. The committee wrote it heard testimony that Gaetz had sex with a 17-year-old girl at a party in 2017. The report called her Victim A and said she recalled receiving $400 in cash that evening, which she understood to be a payment for sex. The report also said Gaetz appeared to have set up an email account from his office in the complex of the Capitol to buy marijuana. That report went on to conclude that Gaetz violated House rules that prohibit prostitution, statutory rape, illicit drug use, and obstruction of Congress, among other standards.
A drag queen in Michigan has been arrested for sexually abusing children. Oh, wait, I'm so sorry. It wasn't a drag queen. It was a MAGA church leader. A 29-year-old man arrested for sexually assaulting children. Because that's apparently what happens when you try to tell us that it's the drag queens reading to children that are corrupting them. Kids need to be in church. And then they go to church and apparently get abused by their pastors. Let me read you this. This is from Newsweek. The 29-year-old worship director from Oakwood Church in Augusta Township, Michigan, faces 11 felony counts with charges dating back a decade. A decade! The man was arraigned, Zachary Joseph Radcliffe is his name. He was arraigned 2 weeks ago on 2 counts of aggravated child sexually abusive activity, 2 counts of child sexually abusive activity, and 6 counts of using the internet to communicate with another to commit a crime. He could face up to 25 years in prison if convicted. The charges stem from incidents as early as 2014, according to court records. This man, Radcliffe, also happens to be a staunch MAGA supporter. He's got photos on his social media wearing his Make America Great Again hat. And of course, at CPAC in 2019, he went up on stage and performed a song. And then got a photo taken, which is also on his social media, with none other than Donald Trump Jr. and Kimberly Guilfoyle. And let's remember, the first accusation of sexually abusing a minor was from 2014. So in 2019, he's up on stage at CPAC singing a song, taking pictures with Trump family members.
God bless the greatest president in our lifetime, Donald Trump.
It's a modern day phenomenon. The little girls just look great, you know.
Soon after his divorce, Ted found a new love, a young girl from Hawaii named Pele Massa.
She was like a dream, a fantasy, exotic dream of mine to meet her.
Ted was 30 years old, Pele just 17.
I was underage, and even back in the wild 70s, it just really wasn't a terribly appropriate situation in most people's eyes. And now it would be criminal.
Ted admits to a number of liaisons with underage girls, and while it may have raised eyebrows, it never raised the interest of local authorities.
I'll first post this TikTok user's reaction to hearing the song for the first time, and will then post the lyrics. Spoiler alert, the girl that Ted Nugent is singing about is 13 years old.
What do you got to do? What the fuck? This calls for a double. What the fuck?
Jane Doe has received numerous threats today, as have all the Trump accusers that I have represented. She is living in fear. She has decided that she is too afraid to show her face. She's been here all day, ready to do it, but unfortunately, she's in terrible fear.
Katie gives a vivid and horrifying description in her sworn affidavit of the 4 encounters she had with Donald Trump. None of Katie's allegations have ever been debunked, nor has she ever retracted any of her statements. The only reason that she didn't follow through with her lawsuit was because of the barrage of death threats that she faced by Trump supporters. In 2016, Katie gave an interview to the British tabloid, the Daily Mail. She gave graphic details of her encounters that are all confirmed in her affidavit. The Daily Mail also confirmed her story with a witness to all the encounters, Tiffany Doe, an Epstein recruiter and coach who witnessed all of the encounters. We learned from Katie and Tiffany's testimony that Jeffrey Epstein provided coaches for his clients with girls like Katie who were virgins and didn't know how to pleasure a man. The coach would sit in on the session and guide the victim according to the client's instructions. For normal-minded people, it is impossible to process this kind of depravity. But both the victim and her witness have sworn in an affidavit to the validity of these encounters, under the threat of perjury for making a false statement.
During our first encounter, Mr. Trump didn't really talk to me at all. He spoke at me, but he was talking to Tiffany more, telling her what he wanted me to do. I thought he felt like he was too good to even speak to me. Tiffany told me what I needed to do. Anything he did say to me wasn't that great. Like, you need some work. I was 13. I didn't know what I was doing. Mr. Trump said very little to me during that first encounter other than I reminded him of his daughter. After I finished the sex act, he made a comment that I wasn't great, before putting on his pants.
He is a former Commerce Department official in the Trump administration, sentenced to a 5.5-year prison term after pleading guilty to possession of child pornography. This is Adam Hageman, also sentenced to 5 years of parole after release and a mandatory requirement to register as a sex offender. He was apparently arrested back in November of 2020. You would think he would have been busy with the whole election thing, but no, he was found to be a member of an online group chat dedicated to sharing images of child sexual abuse. Here are the details. He shared with members at least one video of a child being molested, claimed to have sexually abused a child as young as 15, and indicated that he wanted to sexually assault children between the ages of 12 and 16 years old. Prosecutors asserted that they found dozens of child sexual abuse videos on his phone after they executed a search warrant against him. He also requested of the other members in this group that someone find, quote, a dad with a young kid he will rent out to us. Those are the crimes that he committed, and he will now be spending a number of years in prison, as seems 100% deserved. Prior to that, before serving in the Commerce Department under Donald Trump, he worked at Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA as a campus event coordinator, events that were frequently attended by underage children. If you want to see a picture of this individual, there he is.
A Texas state district judge sentenced MAGA hero Daniel Perry to 25 years in prison for shooting to death a man protesting police brutality. Governor Greg Abbott pardoned him as soon as it was legally possible. During the trial, there was a lot of evidence presented of hateful racist posts from Perry's texts and social media accounts. What wasn't talked about much was his online interaction with a 16-year-old girl. Perry's hunt for minors was also documented in his internet search records, where good chats to meet young girls appeared alongside attack on Jews in Texas. In what may be the most overlooked part of Perry's humiliating exposure, the young girl actually appears put off when Perry tells her to come up with a reason I should be your boyfriend. When he then tries to elicit praise from her by asking, "So why an old man like me?" the 16-year-old tosses back an impressively savage ego torture. "WYM, what do you mean?" she says. "I don't want you."
Developing tonight, a former GOP strategist convicted of trafficking minors, paying 15 and 16-year-old girls in exchange for sex.
He was a powerful GOP donor and political operative, and now he'll be spending 21 years in prison. Anton Lazaro was sentenced today for sex trafficking minors after he was found guilty of those crimes in March. Fox 9's Karen Scullin now with what happened in court and how he got to this point. Karen?
32-year-old Anton Tony Lazaro will be 51 years old when he gets out of federal prison. From there, it's 5 years on supervised release.
Anton Tony Lazaro was becoming a big GOP donor and political activist in Minneapolis, but now he's heading to prison. Prosecutors say Lazaro targeted young girls and gave the 15 and 16-year-olds cash and gifts, and in exchange, the girls would Uber to his upscale condo for sex.
Lazaro especially started floundering on the witness stand when Williams showed these messages to Bittman. On the anniversary of the death of Jeffrey Epstein, the world's most infamous sex trafficker, poor Jeff. Rest in peace, my brother.
All right, hey, this is Sean McHugh. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hey, Sean.
Hey, Sean.
Prayer for Our Nation, hosted by Sean McHugh. They wanted to be a very religious event, and Sean McHugh was doing the prayer. And if you look, it even says, J6 Thanksgiving prayer call, put on the armor of God, 4 p.m. EST Thanksgiving Day. Together we make a stand through Jesus. Some pro-J6 accounts on Twitter think his sentencing won't go poorly. Well, if they bring up his past, which involves a crime against a child, I don't see that being the case.
A Trump supporter accused of storming the U.S. Capitol and heckling police officers for protecting pedophiles previously served jail time after being convicted in the statutory rape of a 14-year-old girl, according to court records. Sean McHugh was convicted in 2010 on a state charge of unlawful sex with a minor, according to California court records. McHugh was sentenced to 240 days in jail. The victim was 14 years old, and McHugh was 23 when the crime occurred. McHugh pleaded no contest to the underage sex charge. The victim and her mother signed off to the plea agreement as part of California's victims' rights law.
Uh-oh, I got the mic. This could be good. No, but I think we should start with, I just like to bring it up that there's a whole lot of people in this country that do give you a lot of credit for everything you've been doing for this country.
Out of all the pedophiles mentioned in this documentary, there is only one who never actually had any formal allegations made against him. The one person is MAGA superstar Kid Rock. For some unknown reason, Kid Rock blurted out a confession on his own. We'll look at the lyrics of his song Cool Daddy Cool first, through the eyes of a TikTok listener. And then I'll post the lyrics to help us try and figure out what would possess a grown man to write such lyrics.
Now some people say my mind's blown. I'm cooling like a snow cone. And my cell phone, I'm pagey. Can't call me, just page me. Young ladies, I like them underage. See, some say that's statutory, but I say it's mandatory. My story.
No. There's no fucking way we're putting this on the soundtrack.
Young ladies, I like them underage. See, some say that's statutory, but I say it's mandatory.
To provide further details on the parties Trump hosted, Gross found two former attendees who agreed to give details of what they saw going on. The first was a photographer who attended many parties, but requested that his name remain anonymous, for obvious reasons. Here's what he had to say.
Trump would take over suites on the corners of his hotel with views of Central Park and Grand Army Plaza.
The attraction for the men was young girls assuming they'd get somewhere by joining the party. Of course, it never happened. Young models were attracted to the parties with a simple, time-tested pitch. You'll meet rich guys who will help you. It was networking, but on a weird, bizarre scale. The girls were as young as 15 and were in over their heads. They had no idea, and they ended up in situations. There were always dramas because the men threw money and drugs at them to keep them enticed. It's based on power and dominating girls who can't push back and can be discarded. There's always someone to pick them back up. Trump would go from room to room. I was there to party myself. It was guys with younger girls, sex, a lot of cocaine, top-shelf liquor, but no smoking. Trump didn't approve of cigarettes. Trump was in and out. He'd wander off with a couple girls. He was getting laid like crazy. Trump was at the heart of it. He loved the attention, and in private, he was a total fucking beast.
The second attendee Michael Gross spoke to was not only a frequent visitor at the Trump parties at the Plaza Hotel, but also helped to organize them by recruiting models. His name is Andy Lucchese. He was a friend of Donald Trump's in the 90s. And in Michael Gross's article that ended up being published by the Daily Beast, for some unknown reason, Andy Lucchese allowed Gross to attach his name to his quotes.
It's fair to say that I was a recruiter for the parties. As for the parties themselves, there was cocaine around. Donald Trump did not do cocaine. He was in control of himself. Girls? Well, of course. But did he have sex with his female party guests? So, he's a man with a woman. How old were they? A lot of girls, 14, look 24. That's as juicy as I can get. I never asked how old they were. I just partook. I did partake in activities that would be considered controversial today.
Now, as for Elliot Broidy's business partner in that Cutter thing, well, as of today, he has a new and newly serious additional child pornography charge to contend with. Devlin Barrett and Rachel Weiner at the Washington Post were first to break the news today that George Nader has been indicted again on new child pornography charges stemming from an FBI search of his 3 iPhones at Dulles Airport in January of last year. These types of charges are not a novel thing for George Nader. In 1985, he was charged with importing child pornography into the United States. He ultimately had that charge dismissed on a technicality. A few years later, in 1991, he was again charged with importing child pornography from overseas. In that case, he was convicted. He was given a 6-month sentence. Years later, in 2003, he was sentenced again, this time in the Czech Republic. This time not for child pornography, but for child molestation. That conviction also resulted in a prison sentence in the Czech Republic. Despite that extensive record, though, George Nader did become some kind of advisor to the government of the United Arab Emirates and the government of Saudi Arabia. And he did then attach himself like a barnacle to the Trump campaign and the Trump White House, where he really made himself one of the guys. He was apparently around a lot.
Also address something because we've got some people that are concerned about it, and I understand that. I completely understand. But I am serving on a faith advisory council for President Trump. I was asked to serve on this council back when he was a candidate in May or June. I was also asked, thank you.
The founding pastor of Gateway Church, Robert Morris, resigned after a woman accused him of sexually assaulting her beginning when she was just 12 years old. Hello, everybody. I'm Heather Hayes.
I'm Steve Eager. The woman says the abuse lasted from 1982 to 1987. The woman's allegations surfaced over the weekend. She says Morris sexually abused her while he and his wife were guests in her family's home in Oklahoma. Morris has said he was involved in an inappropriate sexual behavior in his 20s with what he called, quote, was a young lady.
He told me, he said, hey, come in my room before you go to bed tonight. I want to talk to you.
He was 21, Cindy was 12.
He started by touching my breast and putting his hands in my pants. He wanted me to stand and close my eyes so he could lift my shirt and pull my pants down and just look at me as a 12-year-old.
This guy's screaming, "We want Roy Moore." He's right. We need somebody in that Senate seat who will vote for our Make America Great Again agenda. So get out and vote for Roy Moore. Do it. Do it.
Kelly Harrison Thorpe says she was just 17 years old when she turned down an overture from Moore in 1982. Thorpe says she asked him, "Do you know how old I am?" He reportedly responded, "I go out with girls your age all the time." Those new accusations follow Beverly Young Nelson's emotional claim on Monday that Moore sexually assaulted her when she was 16 years old and he was 30. She says it happened when he gave her a ride home from her job. But the flood of accusations began 1 week ago. Lee Korfman tells the Washington Post she was only 14 when Moore, then 32, an assistant district attorney, sexually assaulted her back in 1979. Wendy Miller says she was 14 when Moore first approached her at the mall, and was 16 when Moore asked her out on dates. But she says they did not go out because her mother forbade it. Debbie Wesson Gibson says she was only 17 when Moore asked her out on several dates that, quote, did not progress beyond kissing.
Get out and vote for Roy Moore. Do it. Do it.
As of today, Tim Nolan is charged with 13 counts of human trafficking. 2 of those counts involve minors. He's charged with rape, prostitution, unlawful transaction with a minor, and tampering with a witness.
Good evening, everybody. The disgraced politician agreed to 20 years in prison for a list of sex crimes.
Local 12 broke this story last spring after a minor came forward and claimed that Nolan had coerced her into having sex for money. That led to a 30-count indictment that included charges of human trafficking, unlawful transaction with a minor, and prostitution.
Well, here's a guy named Tim Nolan. Tim Nolan. He's a Tea Party leader and a good Christian, and the former Trump campaign chair in Campbell County, Kentucky, which is right across the Ohio River from Cincinnati. He has just been sentenced to 20 years in prison for human trafficking. According to Cincinnati.com, this piece of shit, he's a former judge, a Christian, a Republican, a Tea Party leader, and a Trump campaign chair. He pleaded guilty of using drugs and threats of arrest to force women and girls under the age of 18 into sex acts.
Tells Pastor
Laura, what are your thoughts when you hear somebody like Dr. David Duke supporting Trump? Does that make you want to steer away from the candidate, or does that just make you stick to your guns about him?
I think what's happening in the Black or African American community is that we have seen and are seeing a man that is speaking a truth that is resonating. And I got to tell you, there is a groundswell here in Harlem and across America in the Black community for Donald Trump.
New York preacher with a vast history of anti-LGBTQ hate is facing allegations of abuse against school children. One former student said Manning had been sexually harassing her and touching her inappropriately, so she secretly recorded him. And they're not releasing her last name for her protection, but on the recording, Manning can be heard complimenting her breast and saying he wanted to pull up her skirt. He also says he first started having feelings for her when she started at the Atlas School. For the record, she was 14 when she started there.
Matt Marshall finished up his shift here at Brewster Police Department. Shortly after, Mass State Police arrested him on child pornography charges. Officer Matthew Marshall walked into Orleans District Court not in a police uniform, but in a business suit as he made his way through security and into the courthouse.
Commonwealth versus Matthew Marshall.
Once inside, prosecutors say Marshall, using his account on the social media platform Snapchat, possessed and distributed child pornography. Investigators say they got a tip from the Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and that led them to what was found on Marshall's phone involving young girls.
She's standing in front of the video camera producing what appears to be a self-made video in which she is fully nude.
Prosecutors say Marshall shared child porn with other adults. He is also accused of bizarre behavior, like when he walked into a Cape Cod Dunkin' Donuts in uniform and shot video with his phone.
There were videos depicting the defendant entering into what was later determined to be a Dunkin' Donuts and urinating all over the inside of the bathroom inside the Dunkin' Donuts, on the sink, on the handles, on the door.
I pledge for underserved youth.
A former high-ranking Maryland official for then-Governor Larry Hogan is facing sex solicitation charges following a sting operation. Former Deputy Secretary of State Luis Esteban Barunda was arrested last week after arranging to meet up with someone he believed was a 13-year-old girl. He was actually messaging with a special agent posing as the teen. News 4's Joseph Olmo has the story.
This is Luis Barunda, seen here just a few seats away from Governor Larry Hogan in a picture posted to his account on X, formerly known as Twitter. Now he's standing in front of a camera for a different reason, to take a booking photo. Barunda, who served as Maryland Deputy Secretary of State for 8 years, now accused of sending this doctored photo to who he thought was a 13-year-old girl. Investigators say he began chatting online with a special agent with the Fort Meade Army Criminal Investigation Office 2 weeks ago, thinking he was talking to the teen. Police say he told the agent he wanted to meet at a spot in Anne Arundel County last Wednesday. It was there where Barunda was met by police and taken into custody. Barunda already faces one charge of sexual solicitation of a minor, but Maryland State Police are investigating the possibility of there being even more victims. They are urging you to reach out if you've had any contact with him.
I'm upset. I'm stunned.
It's an emotional day at Pinch Elementary School as parents pick up their kids from school.
Just devastation because my granddaughter had been canceled by him 3 days a week.
Wednesday night, federal agents arrested school counselor and social emotional learning coordinator Todd Rhodesy. According to court documents, agents searched his Elkview home late last month and found pictures and videos of child pornography. There was also evidence that he had been messaging girls in the age range of late elementary school through middle school.
My two granddaughters, the one that's in high school, she said she always felt kind of creepy about him, like he was kind of creepy, and my other granddaughters said that too.
But with Tuesday's results, I'm hoping that the rhinos in this chamber realize that the writing's on the wall, and they'll get behind the Freedom Caucus agenda and the agenda of the people of South Carolina.
But we did confirm earlier this week that on Monday morning, agents of the Department of Homeland Security's Homeland Security Investigations Unit, HSI, conducted a search warrant or executed a search warrant on May's West Columbia, South Carolina home. Now, they were accompanied by agents of the South Carolina State Law Enforcement Division. And as we reported exclusively, the focus of the investigation involves allegations regarding what are called now child sex abuse materials. I still call it child porn. To me, that still sounds sufficiently awful, but apparently the new en vogue term, child sex abuse materials, but whatever you want to call it, very bad stuff.
Gary Joseph Hawkins, 44, was booked into the Sevier County Jail on Monday and charged Wednesday in 6th District Court with 3 counts of aggravated sexual exploitation of a minor, a first-degree felony, and 2 second-degree felonies according to a police booking affidavit. Starting in November, an agent with the FBI's Child Exploitation and Human Trafficking Task Force posed online as a 43-year-old mother of a 9-year-old girl and posted messages on websites intended to attract individuals with a sexual interest in children. Hawkins contacted the undercover agent and sent messages using the Kik app to encourage a meeting so he and the undercover agent could sexually assault the 9-year-old daughter, according to the affidavit. Hawkins wanted to impregnate both the agent and her purported daughter to create an incest family where there would be more children to sexually abuse, investigators allege in the affidavit. Hawkins repeatedly asked the agent to send nude images of herself and the 9-year-old daughter. During the undercover agent's messaging with Hawkins, he revealed he had child sex abuse material on his phone and sent the agent several images and videos.
We have a developing story for you this morning. We are learning new details about an arrest of a U.S. congressional candidate. According to the Bossier Parish Sheriff's Office inmate page, deputies arrested this man, Ben Gibson, Wednesday for pornography involving a juvenile and fugitive charges.
A man ran for Congress in Louisiana this year. His name was Ben Gibson, and he actually lost. And it's turning out in hindsight that that was an even better thing than it seemed at the time. Now, bear in mind, one important fact about this candidate is that, according to Media Matters, he has endorsed the QAnon conspiracy theory multiple times on his Facebook campaign page and other social media accounts. The QAnon cult believes that there's an underground network of satanic pedophiles who are being covertly pursued by President Trump. And bear in mind, that underground network of satanic pedophiles includes every celebrity you don't like and all Democratic leaders. We found another interesting thing about Ben Gibson, this person who believes that there's this cult of pedophiles that need to be rooted out at all costs. He was booked this week on 4 counts of pornography, including juveniles under the age of 13.
In Elmore County, a former Wetumpka firefighter who pled guilty to sex crimes involving children has been sentenced to 30 years in prison. John Cole Carter was arrested last summer after an investigation revealed a 6-month relationship with 2 girls ages 13 and 14. During today's sentencing hearing, prosecutors showed some of the hundreds of videos and images sent between Carter and his victims. On at least one occasion, Carter is accused of meeting with one of the girls in person. Today, the district attorney says those crimes were no accident and Carter must be held accountable.
You know, Mr. Carter had a job to where our kids come home from kindergarten and they dress up to be firemen like him. They pick up coloring books because that's people they look up to, people in public service, and that was betrayed.
The DA says today serves as a grim reminder for parents to always be aware of who their children are talking to online. Carter, by the way, resigned from his position with the city of Wetumpka shortly after his arrest.
Heights man's facing federal charges in connection with the January 6th Capitol riots. The U.S. Attorney's Office says Kyle Colton was arrested last week in Folsom. Prosecutors say Colton was spotted on CCTV footage taken from within the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. They say he was also identified among a crowd of rioters in the Capitol Rotunda engaged in a physical confrontation with law enforcement. Body-worn camera footage also showed Colton not following orders to leave the Rotunda. Colton's facing multiple charges in this case. Those include obstruction, disorderly conduct in a Capitol building, and demonstrating in a Capitol building.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. So new charges have been filed against a January 6th defendant, but they're not related to the Capitol attack. 36-year-old California resident Kyle Colton was indicted this month. He was indicted on February 15th for receipt of child pornography. The court documents say that Colton received images of children, quote, engaged in sexually explicit conduct. This was between July of 2022 and December of 2023. And if he's found guilty, he could spend up to 20 years in prison and owe up to $250,000 in fines. So yet another January 6th MAGA man accused of crimes involving sex with children. I have seriously lost count at this point. You know, they really are attracted to Donald Trump, aren't they? For some reason. Yeah. But please tell me again, please tell me more about so-called pedophile Democrats.
Former Castlewood volunteer firefighter is in jail facing charges of child porn and having a relationship with a juvenile. Good evening, I'm Casey Getz.
And I'm Rebecca Pepin. According to authorities with the Russell County, Virginia Sheriff's Office, 47-year-old Eric Arnolds is the accused. Court documents say the victim, a 16-year-old, called a hotline saying that she had been in a relationship with him for 3 months.
Authorities then executed a search warrant on Arnold's phone and found multiple nude images of the juvenile. They also found pornographic images of a child who authorities say appeared to be a toddler.
21 total, 7 misdemeanor counts of contributing, which involved the consensual sexual acts of a juvenile between 15 and 18. 2 felony charges of soliciting sexual acts by requesting nude photographs of the juvenile, and then 12 counts of possession of child pornography or sexually illicit images of a juvenile.
Got a pretty nasty story for you to talk about. It concerns a man named Lynn Lindemann, a 73-year-old pediatric surgeon from Iowa who was just sentenced to 50 years in prison for sexually abusing an 8-year-old girl. Process that one for a second, because do you know why he got such a severe sentence? Because it turns out his sentence was enhanced because he had previously been convicted back in 1976 of sexually assaulting a 14-year-old at a gymnastics camp, which, of course, raises the disturbing and important question of how he became an orthopedic surgeon. We will get to that. But back to the case at hand. Yes, he was convicted of second-degree sexual assault for abusing this girl at his home back in June of 2023. He was arrested the next day, closed his practice. He agreed with the state medical board to stop practicing medicine. Went to trial. Lindeman's ex-wife actually testified that he told her that he was trying to help the girl, quote, explore her sexuality in a safe place. My gosh. Took the jury about an hour to come back with a guilty verdict. Not surprising there.
Over the weekend, there's been an update on the Waurika city manager who was arrested on child sexual abuse charges. Earlier this year, in January, OSBI conducted an interview with Waurika city manager Charles Coyote Dunn before serving him with a search warrant. His electronic devices were seized, and according to OSBI, several child sexual abuse images were found. Dunn was arrested Thursday of last week, and he's been charged with possession and manufacture of child sexual abuse material, as well as loitering around residents to watch occupants. Dunn was subsequently booked into the Stevens County Jail.
Get ready to study the Word of Almighty Yahweh with Dr. Daniel Merrick.
Yahweh or Yehovah, so that's his name. He who causes to be. In other words, that's God's name.
And now, Dr. Dan.
And so, I was thinking that what if that happened and somebody warned me and said, hey, listen, don't do that. You're going to get mind controlled by Satan or by the aliens if you do that. And I think that that's a possible scenario. If you don't have the Ruach in your life, you don't have the Spirit of Yah Almighty in your life, you're going to slip up and maybe make a mistake.
Daniel Merrick is charged with 570 counts of child pornography, involving indecent contact, second-degree felonies, 316 counts of child pornography, involving nudity, third-degree felonies, and 1 count of criminal use of a communications facility, a third-degree felony. Merrick, a Christian musician and pastor, was arrested after a cyber tip was made to state police computer crimes, alleging 8 images and 1 video of child pornography were traced back to his cell phone. Upon investigation, state police found over 800 images of child pornography on Merrick's cell phone. On February 10th, a search warrant was executed on Merrick's residence. Merrick said he began viewing pornography due to marital issues, which led to a 2-month curiosity in child pornography.
So we finally have a case of a drag queen being charged with pornography. Daniel Merrick, 64 years old, from Bradford, Pennsylvania, charged with 880 counts of child pornography. Sorry, what? My mistake. He's not a drag queen. He's a Christian musician and a pastor. 880 counts of child pornography. One more.
Donald Trump, hero. He's our last hope. I'm going to expand on this. Donald Trump is the last hope of Western civilization. He can't stop the decay, but he can slow it down. If he doesn't win, it's over. If Trump doesn't win, it is done. It is over game. Because the circumstances around him not winning are going to be insane.
And I'm very close to the Trump family. I know them well, and I spoke to Barron after the incident, and I look forward to, once I am free, being Donald Trump in person and reminding him that he's a bulletproof badass.
You traveled to the States to meet Donald Trump Jr., is that correct?
I was defending Trump, as you do. He's a fucking G.
Yep.
And then Trump Jr. just liked one of my tweets. I followed him. He followed me back. I DM'd him and said, you guys are literally the heroes of the West. I live in Western Europe where it's finished. You guys are the last hope we got. I would absolutely love for a picture. And he said, come Trump Tower then. That was it. I was like, all right. I booked the first class ticket. Bang, I was there. Guy is cool. He is a cool guy. He is complete. He made me a coffee. Don't let the president's son, he made me a coffee. Like, he's a cool dude.
Police in Romania are questioning Andrew Tate, the controversial social media figure, after raiding his home earlier today as part of an investigation into alleged crimes, including sex with a minor and money laundering. Andrew Tate denies the allegations. A self-described misogynist, he's known for his online content promoting his version of a masculine lifestyle. He's already awaiting trial on charges of rape and human trafficking, which he also denies. Here's our Eastern Europe correspondent, Sarah Rainsford.
Escorted by armed police, Andrew Tate, the notorious internet influencer, was taken in for questioning today.
What I've done wrong, who knows? But it's certainly not.
Surrounded by cameras and protesting his innocence all the way. It followed this early morning raid on the home he shares with his brother in Bucharest. Police had to scale the walls to get in. The Tates had installed steel doors to make life harder. 3 other properties were raided and searched for 10 hours. The man, who has a massive online following, a self-proclaimed misogynist, is already awaiting trial here in Romania, charged with human trafficking and rape. Now, prosecutors have announced a new investigation, including into sex with a minor and trafficking underage persons.
Tristan Tate looks absolutely shook compared to the first time they were arrested, where he seemed less fazed than Andrew. The guy's got post-war eyes trying to process how doomed they are. Obviously, if any of this happened in Britain, it's weird the 4-year investigation didn't find this earlier. But Romania's consent laws are 16 for intercourse, so allegedly, this could lead to seriously hefty sentencing.
I've done nothing but say fantastic things about Romania endlessly. That the mothers of our children are somehow human trafficked.
Tristan's face and Andrew going full Kanye is probably indicative that their lawyer has advised them this time Dicot has a ton more evidence than before.
You have to remember, I'm not saying he's guilty because they found him guilty. I'm saying he's guilty because he self-snitched.
He said it.
I think the one that really matters to people is the fact that they're being alleged to have trafficked underage people. Don't ask me, just watch them talk.
2 girls have claimed Andrew Tate approached them on social media when they still attended school.
PhD is a pimp and hose degree. So the recruitment process is, you message them on Instagram.
I was contacted by Andrew Tate, the older of the Tate brothers, 3 years ago when I was just 16.
Daria was 16 when she says she received a private message on Instagram 2 years ago from Andrew Tate's account.
I asked around to my other friends and my classmates, who were also 15, 16 at the time, and a couple of them also told me they received messages. It was a pretty well-known fact that he had kind of a network of young girls.
You actually have to downplay your relationship with the girl of 6 years, which is difficult. And I only get away with that because the girl of 6 years plays along. So Vivian's been with me 6 years. She's completely head over heels in love with me. She wants kids with me, everything. When I bring on new girls, I usually pair them with Vivian. Because Vivian's younger. Melissa's like 28, Vivian's like 21.
You do the math.
I don't want to.
You do the math.
I don't want to.
She was basically 14, 15 when they got into a relationship. That means when did he start talking to her?
When she was 14.
Or earlier.
It was one the girl called April Baker. So listen, I'm me, doing my thing, right? Bad boy. I'm about 21. And there's a young ting on Facebook, you know. Hottie.
Stop talking like that. You're not black.
I am as black as they come. You don't hear my singing voice?
You're not. You can't sing.
Little sexy, little fat ass. April Baker.
That was her name.
That was her name. And I was like, you're hot. So I messaged her. She's like, I'm only 16. I was like, give a fuck. So it was never so much about out there picking up girls. It was actually something else. It was more about the psychology of things. And I was saying, look, I'm a theorist. Here's the theory. Yeah. That's fine. And he's managed to be quite successful just doing that. If he were to start lying and saying, I'm fucking all these 16-year-old women or 18-year-old women, whatever the law is in America. 18?
It's 18 usually. You get married at 16. I think.
All right, in Romania it's 16, sorry. Yeah. So if I'm fucking all these 18-year-old women.
Am I a bad person? Because the more you didn't like it, the more I enjoyed it. I loved how much you hated it. Turned me on. Why am I like that? Why?
whilst we were having sex, he put his hand on my throat and strangled me until I lost consciousness. But he was still having sex with me when I kind of came back around again.
I am one of the most dangerous men on this planet. Sometimes you forget exactly how lucky you were to get by me. Would you rather me pin you down and make you do things you didn't like, or would you rather you didn't like that I was thinking I can do whatever I want to you? That's what it is. I'm the smartest person on this planet.
And then the next day, one of the whites of my eyes had gone completely red. Apparently, that's kind of common in domestic abuse cases where there's a lack of oxygen in your brain. Your blood vessels start bursting to kind of try and get the oxygen there.
Are you seriously so offended I strangled you a little bit? You didn't pass out.
But he kind of kept saying, I own you, you belong to me, threatening to kill me.
Chill the out. Jesus Christ, I thought you were cool.
They didn't teach you in self-defense? Here's a little move. When I grab you by your neck and you start annoying me trying to resist, and I just... And then I grab you by your neck again. Then what the fuck are you gonna do when your face is collapsed and your fucking cheekbone's broken? You ain't gonna do shit but cry.
I guarantee I changed the way you look at sex forever. You're gonna be fucking crying. I won't cry. I bet you cry, bitch. I bet you fucking cry. You're saying I wouldn't cry. You're challenging me to a fight. You're saying I can't hurt you. You're out of your fucking mind? I don't even have to fuck you. Forget the sex part. That's a distraction. My dick can stay in my pants. I'll just start beating the shit out of you. How about that? We walk in the bedroom. I start kicking your ass. No sex. No sex involved. But you cry then.
I perfected this in pimp school. When I got my PhD, we had to practice if a girl comes at you, you cheater, you cheating. It's bang out the machete, boom in her face, and then grip her up by the neck. Like, shut up, bitch! Her panties get wet. The machete's on the floor, her panties are all wet. You go, fuck her. That's how it goes. Slap, slap, grab, choke, shut up, bitch, sex. These are the basic moves of pimping.
You know, you said it looks like I'm in a teenage girl's bedroom.
Yeah.
To some people, that would be an insult, but to me, I find that quite flattering, to be honest.
Muslims have the best frame on earth.
Crazy.
I want this.
Yeah.
And this is my society, and they're coming along telling me they're going to blow this up and take this away from me. No, I want a virgin wife at 16 who's going to obey me. That's what I want. Life for a man is harder than life for a woman. We need to have a lot of shit to be an important man. To be a woman, you need makeup. If you're truly beautiful, you don't need anything else. I've been on boats in Dubai with 19-year-old Moldovan girls. The guy who got that boat needed $100 million. That bitch, makeup. Same boat. That's how hard it is.
What do you matter about woman? Bruises, why? Why? Beaten with what? With what?
Your hands.
A belt, because you're a jerk. Show me the bruises. 1, 2, 3. Oh, baby. Oh, poor thing. I have an idea. You know what my idea is? Do you know what my idea is? That's right, lock the door, you knew I was going to beat the out of you. If you behaved, I wouldn't have to hit you, would I? You don't. Get out. You can't stay in there forever.
And I agree with everything you just said. And I think that your anger is the same that President Trump has for our country. And the time is now for us to stop being wimps.
And an anti-gay pastor, and his name is Grant Storms, and I'm told that that is not a porn name. That's really the guy's name, Grant Storms. He is arrested for masturbating at a playground full of children. This guy made a career out of attacking gays in the French Quarter. He was arrested. These charges really make the guy seem sick. This was at Metairie Park Friday afternoon, and the guy's 53 years old. He was taken into custody. 2 women reported that he was masturbating in the driver's seat of his own van, which was parked near the carousel and the playground. I honestly get the heebie-jeebies just from even saying...
It's like straight out of an SVU episode.
An anti-gay pastor named Grant Storms was pleasuring himself near the carousel where kids were playing.
According to police reports, Storms was here in Lafreniere Park last Friday, parked near a playground and a carousel. Police say Storms was masturbating in his vehicle. Storms says that's not the case. Today, he emotionally asked for compassion and forgiveness from his family and friends.
You know, I just pray that they can find it within their heart to forgive me. And I'm sorry for what I did. I'm getting help.
A tearful Grant Storms pleaded for his family's privacy and forgiveness as he discussed the obscenity charge against him.
I have some issues I'm dealing with. I'm struggling with some things.
Namely pornography. Storm says it's a problem he developed recently, and he had viewed pornography last Friday, about an hour before his arrest in Lafreniere Park. To those he railed against before, he's offering an apology to now.
So I understand hypocrisy. I understand that clearly, and it deeply hurts me. And when I look back, there's a lot of things I would have done differently.
Good afternoon, Melinda. The final witness for the prosecution was an FBI agent who specializes in computer forensics. He testified that he retrieved videos with pornographic images involving the victim from a computer that had Lisa Byron listed as the owner. He also testified that an iPhone confiscated from Byron was used to take a pornographic video involving the victim. After a brief recess, then it was time for closing arguments. A couple of reported phone calls recorded while Lisa Byron was in jail led off the closing for the government. In one call, Byron is talking to her father and says of the 14-year-old victim, she had a part in this. Assistant U.S. Attorney Helen Fitzgibbon, who's handling the closing, said that is typical of Byron placing the blame for her problems on a young girl. Fitzgibbon told the jury that this is a very straightforward case about a woman who used the victim as a sexual object and videotaped it. She said the evidence is clear that Byron took the girl to Canada to make the video, that she exploited the young girl by encouraging her to drink, smoke marijuana, and have sex.
Here's another follow-up I want to do. We told you about this initial case some time ago, and we now have results from the trial. Lisa Byron is a New Hampshire attorney that worked for the anti-gay Christian organization called the, what was the name of it? The Alliance Defending Freedom, and we've talked about them before. She was found guilty of the charges we reported months ago of child pornography after she videotaped her own daughter having sex with two men on several occasions. Absolutely disgusting. Byron is 43 years old. She's facing a minimum sentence of 25 years after she was convicted by a jury. It took the jury less than 1 hour to deliberate about this. Now, on her Facebook page, she claims the Bible is her favorite book. And like I said, that she worked for the Alliance Defending Freedom.
A former Hays County GOP leader is in jail accused of sexually assaulting a child. Bo Dresner was the precinct chair and sergeant-at-arms for the Hays County Republican Party. He was arrested Wednesday, and Child Protective Services removed 4 kids from his care. It's not clear how young the alleged victim is, but according to an affidavit, she was younger than 14. Dresner is held on a $250,000 bond.
Well, Mr. Dresner was just sentenced to more than 400 years in jail for, among other things, sexually assaulting, raping kids. You know, Republicans have been telling us for several years now that we've got to root out the groomers, right? The groomers that are teachers, the groomers in the LGBTQ community, the groomers in the drag community, the groomers on the left. We have heard nothing but groomer talk from Republican. And the reason is they know damn well who the groomers are. The groomers are coming from the Republican Party. Let me read you this. According to mysanantonio.com, Dresner got a stacked sentence that totaled 410 years, according to a news release. Dresner was given 75 years each for 4 counts of sexual abuse of a child, and Judge Gary Steele of the 274th District Court added sentences of 10 to 20 years for each of the 61 counts of child pornography with intent to promote. They also, by the way, caught him with a one-way ticket to Armenia, which does not have extradition back to the United States.
Now, after there was the shooting in Orlando, where all those people got killed in the biggest mass shooting we've ever had in American history at a gay nightclub, right afterwards, Adkins wrote, "Been through so much with these Jacksonville homosexuals that I don't see none of them as victims." And then he added, if that wasn't enough, I see them as getting what they deserve. Oh, wait a minute. Turns out this guy's in a little bit of trouble, too. What is it for? So authorities Friday morning on charges of, oh, here we go, aggravated child molestation and child molestation.
Former Georgia pastor convicted of child molestation will likely spend the rest of his life in jail. A judge today sentenced Kenneth Atkins to 35 years, plus the rest of his life, however, I should say, will be on probation.
And so that means Atkins likely won't be released until he's in his 90s. First Coast News reporter Juliette Dreyer was there at the sentence as it was handed down and tells us what's next for the case.
Before the judge read out his sentence, Kenneth Atkins addressed the court. He maintained his innocence and said he will not be defined by this moment. We also heard from Atkins' victim in the form of a letter read by the prosecutor who said he's felt nothing but shame and guilt leading to depression. And after his experience with Ken Atkins, he vowed never to trust anyone again. Kenneth Atkins entered the Glynn County courtroom Tuesday morning with hands cuffed, just minutes from learning his fate. In the end, a judge sentenced Atkins to 35 years for the most serious charges, aggravated child molestation, plus the rest of his life on probation. For the remaining charges, Atkins was sentenced to 20 years each, all sentences to run at the same time.
Deputies say an Ohio restaurant owner is admitting he drove across 4 states to have sex with a Rowan County teenager. The suspect says his biggest concern is his business. Thanks for joining us on Queen City News at 10. I'm Brian Blakely.
And I'm Alicia Barnes. Well, Stacey Austin will now face a judge tomorrow morning on a statutory sex charge. Queen City News reporter Daniel Pierce tonight looks at the case and the suspect's reported confession.
Authorities say the 49-year-old drove 6.5 hours. That's 420 miles from Ohio down here to Rowan County to engage in sexual acts, reportedly engage in sexual acts with the 15-year-old he met online. Tuesday, Rowan County authorities found themselves speeding down this road south of Salisbury. 2 reports of a break-in in progress. When they got there, they found the father of a 15-year-old had allegedly caught Stacey Austin inside alone with her child. Rowan County authorities said Austin met the teenager on a social media app. He made plans to pick them up from their house, but decided to stop and hang out inside. Authorities found Austin's underwear in the trash can in the house. They said he admitted he had engaged in sexual acts. His main concern, however, wasn't the charges he was facing. His main concern was 420 miles away in Ohio.
Everybody happy?
Austin was worried he'd lose his job as the owner of a Chick-fil-A in eastern Ohio. According to online records, he's been the owner since 2019.
Well, we start tonight with our big story. A Republican candidate for the Maricopa County Community College Governing Board
suspending his campaign after reports of sexual indecency. Documents show that Randy Kaufman was arrested in Surprise several weeks ago.
Team 12's Colleen Sikora is looking into what police say happened and what's next for the race.
First, we do want to warn you that some of the content in this story is graphic and may disturb some viewers, as a police report details how a Maricopa Community College's police officer found Kaufman in his truck and arrested him on sexual indecency a couple weeks ago. It's campaign signs still up in the West Valley that match the name on a police report dated Tuesday, October 4th, where a police officer from Maricopa Community College's police department details how he found Randy Kaufman committing a lewd act in his truck. The truck was parked at Rio Salado College's Lifelong Learning Center. That center in Surprise next door to a preschool and childcare center. The police report detailing a conversation between the officer and Kaufman, the officer asking, "Why would you do that here?" Kaufman replying, "I'm just really stressed out. I have a lot of things going on." The police report says that the case has been referred over to the Maricopa County Attorney's Office for a charging decision. And 12 News has learned that that could be a felony because of how close police say Kaufman was to that childcare center.
Scott Hounsel was the executive director of the Republican Party of Los Angeles County. Okay. And he's quite aggrieved by some of the sex scandals happening with the Democrats recently. And he's a Republican, that makes sense. And he wants to make fun of them. I get that. Who doesn't want to make fun of Wiener? I understand. So now we go to a news report about Scott Hounsel. Can you see which way this is going? Quote, on Friday, the former executive director of the Republican Party of Los Angeles County was arrested for allegedly sending sexual explicit material to a 16-year-old over social media. Not only was he sexting, it was with a minor and criminal. Well played, well played. Quote, authorities came to his house with a warrant following an investigation by the LAPD's Internet Crimes Against Children unit. He was charged with a misdemeanor and later released on $40,000 bail. Hey, if you're sexting a 16-year-old and you're a politician, don't go on Twitter and be like, look at the wiener, look at my wiener, get it? He's sexting. What a weirdo, man. Those girls are above age. No, you gotta do it with underage girls. Hey, here.
A Lincoln County man who lived across the street from a Harrisburg elementary school admits to possessing child pornography. 48-year-old Rocky Hayes returned to the courtroom today to change his plea. Kettleland's Summer Rattershot was at the hearing and has the details from the courthouse.
We first told you about Rocky Hayes in 2022. That's when authorities searched his Lincoln County home after receiving a cyber tip that he possessed an illegal video of a child being raped. According to the Secretary of State's office, Hayes used to run at least 3 businesses out of his home. But since the original charges were filed, the internet appears to have been scrubbed of information and photos of Hayes. When DCI agents searched Hayes' home office, court documents say they found 2 more illegal videos. Hayes originally pleaded not guilty to 5 counts of child pornography. But today, he returned to the Lincoln County Courthouse to change that plea. Hayes pleaded no contest to 1 count of child pornography, meaning he didn't admit guilt, but accepts the conviction. When sentenced, Hayes faces a maximum of 10 years in prison and or a $20,000 fine.
An anti-gay activist and Proposition 8 donor has been charged with sexually assaulting young boys. Wait a second, an anti-gay pedophile? I thought the anti-gay nuts said that it was gay men who were the pedophiles. Oh, I guess it doesn't always happen that way.
No. If you want evidence of this, just look to the church.
Caleb Douglas Hess, a longtime anti-gay activist, donated money to California's Proposition 8, which is an anti-gay proposed legislation. And this is the most disturbing part. Elementary school teacher. He was taken into custody after admitting he had inappropriate contact with young boys. He was a teacher for the Morongo Unified School District for 25 years. Most recently, he was teaching first grade at Friendly Hills Elementary School in Joshua Tree. A longtime youth volunteer with the incredibly anti-gay Evangelical Free Church of Yucca Valley. He's confessed to sexually abusing, quote, numerous underage boys, which authorities believe occurred between the early 80s and as recently as a week ago. Investigators say that he met the majority of his victims during overnight outings with a youth group at the Evangelical Free Church. I mean, this man is the poster child for how these things happen.
Commissioner from Lake Alfred in Polk County is charged with possession of child pornography. 90-year-old Charlie Lake has been involved in local politics for more than a decade.
10 Tampa Bay's Eric Glasser is live in Lake Alfred tonight, where everyone from colleagues to neighbors say they are in absolute shock over this, Eric.
Yeah, Courtney, shock, disappointment, disgust. No shortage of adjectives tonight here in Lake Alfred, where colleagues and neighbors are now beginning to learn the details of the allegations being made against longtime commissioner and one-time mayor Charlie Lake.
I am finding probable cause on each of the counts.
At his first appearance in Polk County Court, Lake Alfred City Commissioner Charlie Lake stood silent. The 90-year-old facing multiple charges of possession of child pornography.
Tonight, a now former Lake Alfred City Commissioner faces almost 3,000 additional counts of child pornography. 90-year-old Charles Lake was first arrested in mid-April on 300 counts. Polk County deputies tell us that a subsequent search of his storage devices revealed more than 2,000 videos and images depicting the sexual abuse of children between the ages of 6 months and 12 years old.
The College Republican National Committee says that Jonathan Hernandez was a national board member from Oklahoma. In a statement today, they say, "I'm disgusted to hear about the deplorable conduct alleged in the arrest of Jonathan Hernandez," going on to call for changes to its bylaws making code of conduct mandatory. Hernandez was arrested Friday morning at his northwest Oklahoma City apartment. He was booked into the Oklahoma County Jail and released over the weekend. I went to his apartment today but didn't get an answer. Court documents detail the interactions Hernandez had with the then 14-year-old victim, who is now 16, saying they met at church where Hernandez was a minister. And 2 weeks later, Hernandez invited the 14-year-old over to his dorm at Oklahoma Christian University, where the two allegedly watched porn in Hernandez's bed, which led to touching and oral sex. Many of the details too graphic to describe on TV. The university telling News 4, "Once notified of the allegation, our campus police immediately investigated and referred the case to OKC PD."
Less than 1 month since the state Republican Party held its election year convention, the party is facing a test of its party platform and code of conduct. This comes as Senator Ray Holmberg faces allegations that he sexually assaulted a man in 2010, on top of allegations last week that he was involved with Nicholas DeRozier, who is currently incarcerated and facing federal charges of child sex abuse. The Democratic NPL has called for the release of the text messages Holmberg exchanged with DeRozier while he was incarcerated.
Tonight, former North Dakota Senator Ray Holmberg, who is accused of traveling abroad with plans to sexually abuse a child, violated the conditions of his release, according to a filing in the U.S. District Court. According to filings, Holmberg went on the internet multiple times without approval. The filing also alleges he drank alcohol in May and left his home without approval, and would also look at Romantics, an adult novelty store. As reported, Holmberg agreed to plead guilty to traveling abroad over a number of years to have sex with minors. Holmberg's plea hearing is scheduled in U.S. District Court this Thursday.
Right-wing anti-trans internet activists busted for child pornography. An Indiana man with a history of posting far-right and anti-trans memes on social media has been arrested and charged with the possession of child sexual abuse material. Eldon W. Phelps, 25, of Lebanon, Indiana, was arrested in August after the Boone County Sexual Assault and Child Exploitation Task Force linked him to an image of a prepubescent girl being sexually assaulted by an adult man. Investigators are currently performing forensic reviews of material found on the computer and other devices seized from Phelps. His trial is scheduled for December. Following the news of Phelps' arrest and charge, one user of X, formerly known as Twitter, found many anti-trans memes and news stories shared by Eldon on his Facebook account.
A Granbury City Council candidate has been involved with quickly took action to distance themselves from him after his arrest on child pornography charges. 44-year-old Bradley J. Benson was on the ballot in today's city council election, but his time with the Granbury Volunteer Fire Department and his involvement in the Hood County Republican Party appear to be over. Fox 4's Rebecca Butcher has more tonight. Rebecca.
Yeah, Bradley Benson is charged with being in possession of child pornography. He placed second in today's elections results with 32% of the vote. Bradley Benson, a candidate in Tuesday's Granbury City Council election, was arrested Monday morning on 2 felony counts of possession of child pornography. The Hood County District Attorney's Office says the Child Exploitation Unit executed a search warrant and raided Benson's Granbury home. Multiple agencies assisted in the search for evidence and arrest, but the DA's office said little else, citing an active investigation.
At the Capitol, Republicans derailing a motion to expel Prescott Representative David Stringer. Members were set to vote on Democrat Reginald Boulding's motion. The GOP then stepping in, calling for Stringer to be investigated by the Ethics Committee first. On Friday, the Phoenix New-Times reported on decades-old charges against Stringer for child porn and other sex crimes in Maryland. A blog post defending Stringer claims the charges were dropped due to lack of evidence. Stringer already under fire for making racist comments.
We have breaking news out of Phoenix right now. Embattled Arizona State Representative David Stringer has resigned. Stringer faced expulsion over racist comments and sex-related charges from the 90s. House Speaker Rusty Bowers released a statement this afternoon saying he had accepted Stringer's resignation. 2 ethics complaints had been filed against the Republican representative who refused to cooperate with the ethics investigation against him.
How many of you have ever, the thought has come to your mind, like, I am unashamed of my views, right? Okay, I want you to forget that. The concept of shame should never even enter your mind. So never forget that. Never forget that you are standing up for what is right. Wear it on your sleeve as part of your identity. Carry it wherever you go, in all aspects of your life. And if people confront you about it, call you all sorts of names in the books, remember that they are being deceived. Love your enemies.
A member of an anti-abortion rights group
has been fired after being arrested for the online solicitation of a minor. Luke Bowen, who was the political director of Texas Right to Life, was arrested in early August. Prosecutors say Bowen was caught in a sting operation after he arranged to meet someone he thought was an underage girl. Texas Right to Life confirms his firing, but had no other comment.
A member of the Bangor School Committee appeared in court today to face charges of child pornography. John Hyatt was arrested yesterday afternoon. Hyatt is also the Penobscot County Treasurer. News Center Maine's Hannah Yoshivi has details from his bail hearing that wrapped up late this afternoon.
Today was not John Hyatt's first day facing criminal charges. Back in May, he was arrested by Bangor police investigators, charged on 5 counts: aggravated criminal invasion of computer privacy, stalking, theft by unauthorized taking, and 2 counts of harassment. Yesterday, arrested for child pornography found on his phone. Hyatt's bail was set at $1,000 with several conditions to include not being allowed in schools, on playgrounds, or any place where minors might be, and not having access to the internet.
Year-old David Reynolds jailed on Tuesday and transferred to the Pulaski County Jail for 70 counts of child pornography. Reynolds, a former pastor at Cornerstone Bible Fellowship in Sherwood, is accused of using at least 2 different Twitter accounts to gain access to at least 70 pictures depicting children committing sex acts or engaged in sexual explicit conduct.
Arkansas is dealing with another anti-gay pastor who got caught with child pornography. Now, Dave Reynolds is the pastor in question, and he was the Cornerstone Bible Fellowship, or was the pastor at the Cornerstone Bible Fellowship in Sherwood, Arkansas, and is currently facing 70 counts of distributing, possessing, or viewing child pornography. He's 40 years old and has preached that marriage is between a man and a woman and that all homosexual activity is a sin. And he was arrested this week after police recovered a tip from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children that a social media account in Sherwood was storing pages and pages and pages and pages of images of kiddie porn.
The city county councilor charged with child molestation goes before a judge for the first time. And hours later, a major setback in his quest to keep his seat on the council. Good evening to you. I'm Erica Fly. Jeff Miller has indicated he has no plans to step down during the criminal proceedings. And just minutes ago, a committee of his colleagues limited his power and responsibility. Our TV6 political reporter Katie Hines is live at the city county building with the latest.
Erica, the council president and minority leader just voted in the last half hour to remove Jeff Miller from the 3 committees that he serves on, a move that is aimed at limiting what he is able to accomplish on council.
Behind bars tonight facing child porn charges. Charles Young is a longtime local Republican Party leader.
News 3's Brendan Ponton read through this case file tonight. So what else do we know now?
Well, a local official tells me tonight that he'll be praying for Young tonight. And Young faces 10 charges. He's accused of knowingly receiving child porn. And tonight, those who know him, as I mentioned, say they are sad to hear the news of his arrest. Charles Young is well known on the peninsula and in James City County for his local Republican Party leadership. But tonight, the 69-year-old is behind bars. Young faces 10 charges. He's accused of knowingly receiving child porn involving minor boys.
U.S. Representative Tim Huelskamp fires a staff member after learning of his arrest on child sex crimes. Kate Stead-Ferris joins us with new details on the case. Hey, Deb.
Susan, Matthew Pinnell has worked for Huelskamp since June of 2014 as a constituent service representative. Now he faces numerous charges. He's been charged with 17 counts of sexual exploitation of a child. Pinnell has worked as a staffer for Congressman Huelskamp, who has offices across western and central Kansas. Dodge City has one of those offices. The chief of staff for Huelskamp says Pinnell was on unpaid leave after being arrested. Police took Pinnell into custody in Dodge City after an investigation by police and the Internet Crimes Against Children's Task Force. The Ford County Jail says Pinnell is now being held on a $75,000 bond.
New tonight, a Mint Hill man first arrested on charges related to the riots at the Capitol on January 6th is back behind bars. He's now accused of making child porn. It's a story we first broke this afternoon on WBTV.com. David Daniel was arrested a second time in September. The FBI says it found pictures of an underage girl partially naked on the cell phone they seized from him during his first arrest. An FBI agent investigating the case said in a court document that Daniel was also being investigated by Mint Hill Police and the Forsyth County Sheriff's Office in Winston-Salem after reports he engaged in sexual activity with two prepubescent girls.
Karen and Rob, the King County State's Attorney, tells us that it was the alleged victim's parents who first discovered the inappropriate communication between their teenage child and the now former youth pastor, reporting it first to DCFS. Arrested last week, 24-year-old Paxton Singer is free on bond, charged with misdemeanor sexual exploitation of a minor while he was serving as youth director of Harvest Bible Church in Aurora. Singer sent text messages to the victim and asked questions that were sexual in nature and asked the victim to spend the weekend with him, alarming and disturbing the victim's parents.
A pastor and leader of the Philadelphia Moms for Liberty chapter has been exposed as a registered sex offender, which there's a dark form of irony whenever this pops up, this group that has prided itself on trying to weed out these subversive elements in society that are going for our kids. You know, groups like teachers and stuff, and then within their own ranks harboring people who have done horrid things. So in this case, it is Philip Fisher Jr., who leads the Center for Universal Divinity in Olney, helps connect the right-wing group with local faith leaders to boost their memberships. He also pleaded guilty back in 2012 to a felony count of aggravated sexual abuse of a 14-year-old boy when he was 25. Was sentenced to 3 years in prison, given credit for spending nearly 20 months in jail awaiting trial, and he said he agreed to plead guilty to get out of jail, where he said he experienced violence from other prisoners. So he is denying sort of the substance of the charges.
Police arrested a man after they said he sexually assaulted a child. A judge gave James Mansfield a $500,000 bond and was charged with rape and failure to appear. This is a picture of him being escorted out of the courtroom following his appearance. During an interview, officers said the victim told them Mansfield sexually assaulted her for 3 weeks. He is being held in the Craighead County Detention Center.
former legislative candidate Joel Koskin is headed to prison. The former South Dakota legislative candidate was walked out of the courtroom in handcuffs after the judge sentenced him to 10 years in prison on sex charges. According to earlier court documents, the victim in the case was a child. Today's hearing came after a judge rejected a plea agreement in the case.
Cranston City Councilman Matthew Riley was officially indicted this morning for allegedly assaulting a 12-year-old girl in May of last year. The 42-year-old has been charged with 2 counts of second-degree child molestation, enticement of a minor, and simple assault.
We're following breaking news. A former state senator pleaded guilty to possessing child pornography. Investigators found lewd images of children on Mike Fulmer's cell phone. He represented Lebanon County in the state Senate. He resigned after the charges were announced.
A Rhode Island man affiliated with the nationalist social club 131, a New England neo-Nazi group known for hurling accusations of pedophilia during drag queen story hours, is now facing a child pornography charge. Stephen Ferreira, a 34-year-old from Portsmouth, has been charged with possessing child pornography. The arrest followed an investigation initiated from a tip about his involvement in such activities, leading to the seizure of explicit images on his electronic devices. Ferreira, previously known for white nationalist activities, has been set stringent bail conditions, including no internet use and no contact with minors.